In 1974, the CIA handed a man named Pat Price a piece of paper. On it were geographic coordinates. Nothing else, no photos, no descriptions, no context whatsoever. Pat Price closed his eyes. And then he described, in detail, the interior and exterior of a secret Soviet weapons laboratory buried deep inside Siberia, a facility the CIA already had classified intelligence on. His description was so accurate that the government launched a formal congressional investigation to find out who had leaked classified information to the researchers. No leak was found. Pat Price had never been to Siberia. He had never seen a photograph of the facility. He had simply sat in a room and looked. History has an official version, sanitized, approved, filed away. And then there's everything else that didn't make it into that version. The programs that were classified before anyone could ask questions, the groups that gathered power in the shadows of ordinary life, the experiments into human consciousness that serious institutions funded, studied, and then buried. My name is Mila. This is The Periphery, dark history, hidden cults, and the edges of the human mind. Welcome to the part of the record they didn't want you to find. They classified it, and we're declassifying it, one episode at a time. To understand why the United States government funded psychic spies for 2 decades, you need to understand one thing about the Cold War. It wasn't just a military arms race. It wasn't just a nuclear arms race. It was a race across every conceivable domain, including the ones that sounded completely insane.
That's great. Is the lighting halfway decent?
Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface.
Up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface.
In 1970, a book called Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain was published by 2 journalists named Sheila Ostrander and Lynn Schroeder. The book claimed that the Soviet Union was pouring significant resources into research on extrasensory perception, psychokinesis, and telepathy specifically for military and intelligence applications. The book landed on the desks of people at the CIA, and the reaction was not skepticism. The reaction was, we cannot afford to fall behind. The program that eventually became known as Project Stargate went through so many names it almost feels like the government was embarrassed by it, which, to be fair, they probably were. It was called Scanate, then Gondola-ish, then Grill Flame, then Center Lane, then Sunstreak. Finally, in 1991, all of these programs were consolidated and given the name they'd be declassified under: Stargate. The foundational research was conducted by Stanford Research Institute in Menlo Park, California, not exactly the location you'd expect the government to be running psychic experiments. 2 physicists named Russell Targ and Harold Punthoff led the program, working with a small group of individuals they described in official documents as, and I love this phrase, gifted subjects. Among those 2 gifted subjects were 2 men who would define what Project Stargate was capable of, or at least what it claimed to be capable of. The first was Ingo Swann. Swann was a New York artist and self-described psychic who had been conducting his own consciousness experiments since the late 60s. He's also, somewhat delightfully, the person who coined the term remote viewing, the idea that the mind could perceive distant locations without the use of any known sensory channel. In 1973, Swann was asked to do something remarkable. NASA's Pioneer 10 spacecraft was on its way to Jupiter, but hadn't arrived yet. Nobody on Earth had close-range data on what Jupiter actually looked like close-up. The researchers gave Swann the coordinates of Jupiter and asked him to describe what he saw. Swann reported something unexpected. He said Jupiter had rings. At this time, this was considered wrong. Everyone knew Jupiter didn't have rings. That was Saturn. Now, I want to be clear with you here, because that's what we do on this show. The scientific community's assessment of remote viewing is that the evidence doesn't hold up under properly controlled conditions. Results were inconsistent, some experiments lacked controls, the Jupiter rings detail is genuinely unexplained, but a single data point isn't proof of a phenomenon. What is documented and what is on the CIA's website right now is that serious scientists working with serious institutional funding took this seriously for 23 years. That alone is worth examining. The second key figure was Pat Price, the man I spoke of earlier. Price was a retired police commissioner from Burbank, California. He was not an artist or a mystic. He was a former law enforcement officer with a methodical mind and a matter-of-fact attitude toward what he claimed he could do. In addition to the Siberian Weapons Laboratory, the session that triggered the Congressional investigation, Price conducted a series of sessions in which he was given nothing but coordinates and asked to describe what was there. In one session, he was asked to locate a Soviet submarine under construction. He reportedly provided details that were later verified against classified intelligence. In another, he described a location that researchers couldn't verify at the time, only to have a commemorative photograph published in 1995 confirm that the site had looked exactly as Price described it in 1913. Pat Price died suddenly in 1975 under circumstances that were never fully explained. He was only 57 years old, and the program continued without him. By the late 1970s, Project Stargate had moved beyond research and into operations, which is a sentence I genuinely cannot believe I'm saying, but here we are. The program was run out of what one participant described as, quote, an old leaky wooden barracks at Fort Meade, Maryland. At peak operation, it had around 20 active military and civilian remote viewers. It operated under the Defense Intelligence Agency, and it was assigned real intelligence missions. Project Stargate operational missions included locating a downed Soviet aircraft in Africa, identifying a Soviet nuclear submarine under construction in 1979, assisting in the search for Red Brigade terrorism hostages in Italy, locating Scud missile sites during the First Gulf War, attempting to find plutonium in North Korea in 1994. One of the program's most documented participants was a retired Army intelligence officer named Joseph McMonagle, who claimed to have contributed over 450 remote viewing missions between 1978 and 1984, for which he received a Legion of Merit, one of the military's highest non-combat honors for providing information on 150 targets that were, quote, unavailable from other sources. McMonagle was also refreshingly candid about the program's limitations. He noted that the Army never had a truly open attitude towards psychic functioning, and that there was an internal culture of what he called the giggle factor. Soldiers didn't exactly want to be found dead next to a psychic. The program had a complicated relationship with the Monroe Institute, a consciousness research organization in Faber, Virginia, founded by a radio executive named Robert Monroe, who had begun experimenting spontaneous out-of-body experiences in the 1950s and spent the rest of his life trying to understand what was happening to him. Monroe developed a technology called hemisync, hemispheric synchronization, which used binaural audio frequencies to synchronize the left and right hemispheres of the brain and induced altered states of consciousness. Put specific frequencies in each ear, and the brain produces a third frequency in the difference between them, creating brainwave states associated with deep meditation, lucid dreaming, and, according to Monroe, out-of-body experience.
This is the first step along your path to a gateway beyond which is discovery, your own discovery of reality.
Several Project Stargate remote viewers trained at the Monroe Institute, and in the early 1980s, the CIA commissioned a classified report on the gateway process, Monroe's consciousness training program, authored by a lieutenant colonel named Wayne McDonnell. The report concluded that the gateway process represented, and I'm going to read this directly from the declassified document because I need you to understand this is real. A training system designed to bring enhanced strength, focus, and coherence to the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output between the left and right hemispheres so as to alter consciousness, moving it outside the physical sphere so as to ultimately escape even the restrictions of time and space. The United States Army sent personnel to Monroe's Gateway program as part of Project Stargate. A radio executive in rural Virginia was teaching military intelligence officers to leave their bodies, and the CIA wrote a classified report about it. By 1995, the Cold War was over. The program had dwindled from 20 viewers to 3, one of whom, according to internal documents, had started using tarot cards. The CIA commissioned an independent review by the American Institutes for Research. 2 reviewers, statistician Jessica Utz and psychologist Ray Hyman, came to different conclusions. Utz maintained there had been statistically significant positive effects, with some subjects scoring 5 to 15% above chance. Hyman argued the findings had yet to be independently replicated and more investigation was needed. Based on this ambiguous conclusion, the CIA terminated the $20 million program. Project Stargate was officially closed in 1995. All documents were declassified, and they are available right now on CIA.gov. Now here's what I want you to sit with before we close. Forget for a moment whether remote viewing is real. Forget the debate between Jessica Utz and Ray Hyman. Forget the tarot cards. Focus on this. The United States government spent $20 million and 23 years investigating whether the human mind could perceive things beyond the reach of its ordinary senses. They did this not because of fringe researchers or eccentric civilians, but because serious physicists at Stanford, serious military intelligence officers, and serious analysts at the CIA looked at the question and said, "We don't know the answer, and the answer might matter." That's not nothing. We live in a culture that has decided it knows roughly what the mind is. It's a biological computer. It processes sensory input. It generates thoughts. It is fundamentally local, confined to the skull, dependent on the body, and bound by the senses. And here's the thing. Neuroscience keeps finding edges it didn't expect. Quantum biology keeps finding phenomena that don't behave the way classical physics said they should. Consciousness remains, in the words of philosopher David Chalmers.
The hard problem, by contrast, is the problem of how it is that all these processes give rise to subjective experience. And what's distinctive about this is it doesn't seem to be a problem about objective mechanisms, about, for example, behaviors.
The hard problem, the one thing science cannot yet fully explain, even in theory. We don't actually know what the mind even is. We know a lot about the brain. We know almost nothing about consciousness. Robert Monroe, the radio executive who spent 30 years mapping the territory of his own consciousness, arrived through direct personal experience at a framework that, his biographers wrote, maps remarkably closely onto mystical and contemplative traditions developed independently across cultures for thousands of years. He had no training in those traditions. He was an engineer, a businessman, a man who approached his own anomalous experiences with the same methodical curiosity he brought to radio broadcasting. And what he concluded, what the Monroe Institute continues to explore, is that consciousness may be far less confined than we assume, that it may have capacities we've barely begun to investigate, that the boundary between self and world, between inner and outer, between here and there may be more permeable than our ordinary experience suggests. I'm telling you that serious people, physicists, military intelligence officers, neuroscientists, have looked at that possibility and refused to dismiss it entirely. And I think that's worth sitting with. Here's what I actually want you to take from this episode. Every story we cover on the periphery is ultimately a story of power. Who has it, how they use it, and what they're willing to do to maintain it. Operation Midnight Climax was about institutions using human beings as instruments. The Family was about a single person using charisma and psychological control to build absolute authority over others. And Project Stargate is different. It's a story about an institution, the most powerful intelligence apparatus in the world, spending 2 decades and $20 million investigating a capacity that, if real, would belong not to governments or agencies or classified programs. It would belong to people. Ordinary people sitting in ordinary rooms, closing their eyes. Whatever the truth of remote viewing turns out to be, and I genuinely don't know what that truth is, the question underneath it is one of the most radical questions you can ask. What are you actually capable of? Not what your school said, not what your culture decided, not what an institution found useful. What is the human mind actually capable of when we stop assuming we already know the answer? The documents are real. The program was real. The question is still open. And I think that's worth remembering the next time someone tells you exactly what is and isn't possible. If this episode made you curious, good. That's the point. The CIA's declassified Stargate files are available right now at cia.gov/readingroom. The Monroe Institute's Gateway tapes, the consciousness training program that the Army sent its remote viewers to complete, are available online. Go explore them for yourself. Subscribe to The Periphery on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Leave a comment with this: if you could remote view one location, anywhere, anytime in history, where would you go? I'm genuinely curious. Next week on The Periphery. They worshipped both Christ and Satan simultaneously. Their publications look like high-end art magazines. They allegedly had connections to Charles Manson, the son of Sam, and some of the most disturbing crimes of the 1970s. And then they quietly disappeared. Or did they? Next week, the Process Church of the Final Judgment.